Hi, lovelies. Thank you. Your Louisiana Swamp Witch. My name is Melody. New space, new life. Welcome to the lair. Welcome to the first episode in my new space. With that being said, I'm not have any glare, even though I need my spectacles to see you better with, my dear. However, go blindly into this Louisiana folklore. So we always have great stories about the history behind certain cultural boogeymen. And today we're going to just go ahead and deep dive right into the history and the mystery and the lore behind them. Louisiana's folklore is sort of what you'd call a cultural gumbo. This has been formed by waves of migration, forced displacement, and extreme geographical isolation. So, when we put those things together, we have this recipe. For many generations, we've passed down the cultural boogeymen, and a lot of it has to do with religion, disobedient children, the roots beneath the stories, a complex state in general of dense fog-covered swamps, disorienting bayous, ancient cypress forest, and you know, lacking modern science, map making tools, and electricity, all served as the perfect canvas for these tales. Early settlers used the supernatural to make sense of the beautiful but highly dangerous environment that they were now engulfed in. So, the Acadian exile and French roots can be traced directly back to medieval Europe. Most of Louisiana's most famous monsters come from that part of the world. And we'll start with the loup garou to the rougarou. You know, big old dumb shapeshifter. Well, in 1755, the British forcibly expelled French speaking Acadians from eastern Canada. And when they settled in the isolated wetlands of South Louisiana, they became Cajuns. Now, they brought with them the European werewolf, the loup garou. So they brought with them this lore, but because wolves did not exist in Louisiana swamps, the beast seemed to morph. It shifted into a creature with the head of a feral swamp dog or an alligator in some tales. And then we ended up with the rougarou. So then we have the second tale that is carried over from medieval European times, and that is the faufolet. I've had a couple of watchers that have commented that they are familiar with this story as the Will o' the Wisp. Willow the Wisp. For centuries in the European phenomenon, in France, these lights were thought to be the souls of unbaptized children or malicious spirits. Marshes of Louisiana, the legend took on a practical urgency. So it explained why travelers mysteriously vanished into the trenches, into the quicksand, into the deep bogs. It was a reason to be. It was a reason that these things happen. Catholicism and social control plays a large part in a lot of these stories. Folklore in Louisiana is heavily intertwined, if you could not tell already throughout the stories that we've been telling, with deep-seated Roman Catholic traditions introduced by French and Spanish colonists. The Lent curse, so the rougarou became an enforcement tool for the church. Quite bizarre, but yet here we are. So elders would tell children that if they broke the strict fasting rules of Lent for 7 years in a row, God would curse them and transform them into the beast, known as the rougarou. You mean. You just mean. I mean, ugh. The 12 object defense is very funny to me. I love this. Superstition dictates that you can protect your home from the Rougarou by placing 13 small pennies or rocks on your porch because the beast is a cursed, simple minded human. It feels compelled to count them. However, because it cannot comprehend the number 13, historically associated with Judas or bad luck, it gets confused. So it starts over repeatedly and is caught by the rising sun until it runs away from your home and you are now safe. West African and Caribbean fusions. The transatlantic slave trade and influx of refugees from Haitian Revolution fundamentally reshaped the cultural landscape of Louisiana as well. And with that came its own set of tales. We have the rise of the Creole lore, which enslaved people from West Africa, fused their native spiritualities with French and Spanish traditions, and these birthed Louisiana voodoo. So, moving into the Acadian expulsion, known in French as Le Grand Derangement, the Great Upheaval. This was a systematic ethnic cleansing executed by British military between 1755 and 1764. So this forcibly removed over 11,000 French-speaking Acadian colonists from their homeland in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island that ultimately birthed Louisiana's Cajun culture. There was a geopolitical tug of war, and Acadia was a French colony settled in the early 1600s. In 1713, ceded the territory to Great Britain. They refused to sign an unconditional oath of allegiance to the British crown, as it would require them to take up arms against their French kin and fellow Catholics. That was a no go. We stood our ground. We refused to lick the boot. So, with the French and Indian War looming in 1755, the British governor, Charles Lawrence, decided that Acadians posed a security threat. He probably would have slayed his ass, that's why. He demanded that they take the oath, and when they refused, he ordered their immediate expulsion and confiscation of all their property. The brutality of the upheaval was something else. So, 1755, British colonial John Winslow ordered all Acadian men and boys over the age of 10 in Grand Prix to gather to the local church. Once inside, they were locked in and informed that they, their families, and their lands were forfeited to the crown. Really? That came family separation. The British systematically separated families, loading men onto separate transport ships from women and children to prevent resistance. It's a really disgusting act of inhumanity, but here we are. To ensure that the Acadians could never return, British troops burned down their homes, barns, and their churches and slaughtered their livestock. Out of approximately 14,000 Acadians, the estimated 5,000 died from disease, starvation, and shipwrecks during the voyage. Catholic British colonies like Massachusetts and Virginia sent back to France or imprisoned in England. Many spent a decade at sea or in refugee camps. By 1764, Spain took control of Louisiana from France, seeking Catholic, anti British settlers to cultivate the untamed colony and act as a military buffer. The Spanish authorities welcomed Acadian refugees. The arrival of the first mass contingent was in 1765, led by Joseph Broussard, was met with land grants and harsh, isolated Attakapas region, modern day, that's Lafayette and St. Martinville, and then the Atchafalaya Basin. From Acadian to Cajun. Forced into isolation of South Louisiana wetlands, the Acadians underwent a profound cultural transformation. Language shift, here happened over generations of isolation. Their 17th century French dialect blended with Spanish, English, German, and West African words, evolving into Cajun French, which many of our grandparents and great grandparents spoke. People today still try to keep the tradition alive. And there was a culinary evolution as well. Lacking of apples, potatoes, and Atlantic fish of Canada, the adapted tradition was French cooking techniques to swamp environment. They embraced local ingredients like crawfish, wild game, okra, rice, giving birth to Cajun cuisine, gumbo, jambalaya, boudin. And then there was the resilience itself. So the word Cajun itself is phonetic corruption of Acadian. Acadian, Cadian, Cajun, Cajun, involving an evolution from an early English ethnic slur into a badge of cultural pride and survivalism. That's what we do here in Louisiana. We survive. I think we always have and we always will. So, that, my friends, is our deep dive into boogeyman culture and Cajun culture and how it all came together. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoy these stories and enjoy my content, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Would you please like and subscribe and maybe share? See you soon.